Now there's some strange brain infections, particularly viral infections. But before going on to any examples, to understand viral infection, you have to first understand the basics of DNA, of genetics. Now, DNA is double-stranded, and the way it works is it unzips and replicates a mirror image of a segment of DNA called a gene. This replicant is called RNA, and it's single-stranded, and it makes its way to this section of the cell that's sort of like a factory, and on these little organelles called ribosomes, which suck in the RNA and move it along like a typewriter, reading the genetic code off of it. And for each section creates a corresponding protein, and so in the end, the gene from the DNA is converted into an actual physical protein structure. What viruses are floating little strands of either DNA or RNA, which make its way into our cells and take over the factory and produce their own proteins. Now, this universal law of genetics, as described, was always thought to have no exceptions, but more recently they did find an exception, a thing called prion disease. Now, what a prion is a microorganism, a living thing, which can invade our body cells and take over the machinery, very much like a virus, but strangely it has no nucleic acid, no genetic material, no DNA, no RNA. It's a complete exception to this universal rule of how living things work, whether they're plants or animals. Anyhow, no doubt, being such a strange organism, it also causes a very strange disease called Kuru. Down in New Guinea, there is a tribe called the Foray tribe, and part of their activities is cannibalism, eating human brains. What happens is the prions have infected the brains, and this goes into the people, and they get a disease, Kuru, the laughing death, and essentially laugh to death. It's 100% fatal, and there is no known cure. Incidentally, the word cannibalism was coined in the Caribbean. The Caribbean islands are named after the Carib Indians, which came from South America and canoed north, and there they met the indigenous Indians of the Caribbean before them, known as the Arawaks. The Carib Indians, if they were to win a fight and kill their enemy, to absorb the valor of their enemy, they'd eat them. And in the Arawak language, cannibal was what they called the Caribs. There's another strange virus which also infects brains, rabies. A bizarre symptom of rabies is something called hydrophobia, a complete fear of water. Merely seeing water or hearing it terrifies the patients with rabies. Now, as we've been discussing the brain, we have predominantly been speaking about the cerebral cortex. That's man's big brain. It's wrapped around the basic core of the brain, and this core of the brain is what we share in common with lower animals. It doesn't have as much to do with thought and reason, but instead reflexes and regulation. This is the area where the hypothalamus is located. Among other things, one of its functions is regulating temperature. So nerves come in, feeding in what the temperature is outside to the hypothalamus, and on one side, one extreme, if it's cold outside, it'll make us shiver to generate heat and go pale and keep the blood deep inside and keep us warm, whereas when it's hot, you blush and the blood goes to the surface, liberates heat, and you sweat, and this helps cool you down and maintain a constant temperature. Incidentally, crickets can tell you what the temperature is outside. The number of chirps within 15 seconds plus the number 37 will give you what the temperature is outside. Fortunately, because of our hypothalamus, we don't have to wait for cricket season to know what's going on with the temperature. Anyhow, nerves descend down from the hypothalamus into your body as a network called the autonomic nervous system, a set of nerves. And there's two limbs. There's the sympathetic, which when it's activated releases adrenaline and makes us ready for anything, sort of like a threatened animal. So the blood shunts to your muscles to run and fight, and makes your heart race. On the other extreme is the parasympathetic, which is the opposite. It's for when you're at peace, and so the blood in your body shunts away from your arms and legs to your organs, like your stomach, to digest food peacefully. Incidentally, the word sympathetic means suffering. No doubt this state of hypervigilance is unpleasant, and this is where the word comes from. Descending down further through your brain's anatomy, below the hypothalamus is the pituitary. That's from the Latin pituita, which means mucus secretion. Where this comes from is historic physician Galen erroneously believed that the mucus that leaves your nose was produced by the pituitary gland. In fact, the purpose of the pituitary is instead to regulate all the other hormone-producing glands in your body, whether it's your thyroid gland in your neck or your ovaries, etc. Finally, there's a unusual organ inside your brain called the pineal gland. It's pretty much in the center of your brain, and it's directly connected by large nerves that go straight to your eyes. And what it does in lower animals is the light comes into your eyes, and in the summer it's one extreme, and in the winter, when there's less light, the other. And what it does is, based on the amount of light, is it produces pigment, melatonin. So for example, in the winter, an animal won't make any pigment, and its fur is going to be white to match the snow as a way of being camouflaged. But humans still do have this pineal gland, And what it does for us is it uses the light to give us a sense of time, circadian rhythms. Unfortunately, people who travel through different time zones, like airline personnel, it confuses the pineal and they end up having trouble sleeping, insomnia. No surprise, the treatment for that is melatonin extract. So your brain is indeed quite interesting. So ends today's episode of The Brain in Your Body is Interesting. Join me tomorrow as we continue our journey.